Hi everybody. So I have a new setup, so it looks a little bit different, but I think it looks better. I'm going to be showing you how I did a few brilliant moves in these games. They're actually not too difficult to find, and you can probably find it in this game analysis. And some of you asked how I play some games, so here's going to be a game that I played before New Year's. I think this was like December 21st, right around like Christmas time before then. So I'm playing as white. My opponent plays the Nimzovich defense. I get full control of the center, and then he's attacking my pawn. I can capture that, but I want to close the game, make that knight move, make them lose tempo. So I push my pawn to d5. My opponent brought the knight back, and then I pushed the pawn to c4. Now the commentator is saying it's an inaccuracy, but this is actually a little bit aggressive play, trying to put three pawns in the center. Generally, we like to do two pawns in the center at the beginning of the game. However, since my opponent is playing a little bit passively, I thought this would be a good way to try to attack in the center. He pushes the pawn to here. Now this bishop is pretty bad. So I develop my knight. My opponent brings a bishop, and I push the pawn attacking it. They capture. I capture back with my queen, and now my queen is in the game too. The knight comes out to there, and I move my bishop to here to support this. There's not too many good squares for this bishop, but this can also allow me to do a castle quickly. In the next turns, I want to develop my knight, want to bring out the bishop. My opponent brought the knight. I do a castle, the bishop goes to there, I develop the knight. As you can see, these are all inaccuracies, but it's fine. The queen goes to d7, and I think I got like 80% in this game from accuracy. And I make a pawn chain this way. Since the opponent's dark squared bishop is all the way in the back, these dark squares are a little bit weakened, but right now my opponent cannot reach it, so it's a bit fine for me. Now my opponent had a castle, and this is a little bit weird because my opponent was putting all these pieces over the king side, and now they castled over the queen side. So this can allow me to try to maybe attack these pawns in a different way. So I actually brought my queen to e3 to be able to attack that pawn. All of this is happening in less than 30 seconds. This is a 10-minute rapid game control, no time additions. My opponent brought the king to here, a classic move to protect a7. And I bring this knight, attacking there, putting pressure, a simple twofold attack. Now, my opponent is doing this move. It weakens these squares a lot, and you see this pawn actually becomes a quite dangerous piece. This can allow me to do maybe an outpost in the future, try to attack on c6. Now, I'm doing a classic flank attack, trying to break this pawn structure, make a pawn break over there. He's bringing his knight over there to maybe do an attack over here, but you'll see how it unfolds. I push the pawn, my opponent brought the knight, maybe there can be a potential knight sacrifice. I capture that pawn, and my opponent captured with this pawn. So, we now have an open A file. This can potentially create some sacrifice ideas. My knight is also in a very, very good spot. So, definitely something we can look into. I brought the queen, simply preparing queen a2 and then trying to go to a8 to do a simple checkmate. Now my opponent did this knight sacrifice. I capture back, queen gets in. Now this can get a little bit dangerous if the knight comes to f4 in time. Maybe even the bishop can try to like come in time to make some attacks. However, this is actually one I did a brilliant move. So if you want, you can pause the video to think about it. It's actually not that hard to see. Alright, so the brilliant move that I did is rook a8. A simple rook sacrifice, but if my opponent captures this, I can bring my queen to a2, attacking this. If the king goes somewhere like there, there's a checkmate in two moves, like this. Alright, let me close the like that. But yeah, in the game, that didn't happen. So I brought the rook to a8. My opponent brought the king to here. Even though I want to bring the queen to a2 right now, it doesn't work because they can simply capture our rook on a8. So in order to move the rook and not lose tempo, because there are some ideas like this. I actually simply brought my rook to do a check. King went back, and now I brought the queen to here. Even though we can try to pursue an attack over there, since my king is a little bit too open, I wanted to do a queen trade quite fast, removing their attacker. My opponent did a check, moving the king closer to here, so in the future I can bring my queen to here, which is what happened in the game, but now I can bring it to this square. We did this queen trade, and now there's a knight captures a bishop, and I captured a pawn. So my bishop is hanging, their bishop is hanging. I can try to capture there later on. There are a lot of attacking ideas. So as you can see, I thought like 10 seconds-ish for this move. My opponent brought the rook to there, and I made a blunder this way. So in this position, they can actually use their knight, which is what happened. But now the second brilliant move comes. So if you want, you can try to pause the video and think about it. This one is a little bit more strange. So the move that I did is rook f3. The reason why the commentator thinks this is a blunder move is because we are giving away the bishop. If they capture that bishop, my idea is that I want to bring this rook to here, and there's a checkmate idea in 2 steps. They can't really prevent it now. Even if they push the pawn to make an escape square for the king, we can push. Oh, whoops. That doesn't even work. The knight is there. And now that's going to be a checkmate. So that's my plan idea. But in the game, they actually push the pawn. So the rooks are saying, hello, we need to do something about our rook, otherwise they want to capture it. I captured that first, they captured my knight. And now I thought that if he captured, I can probably move the rook to here and then attack both and win one of them. But I did a miscalculation. They captured that bishop. I did this move, but now black can save both the knight and the bishop at the same time. And that move is bishop g5. So my opponent brought the bishop to g5. I captured a pawn, attacking my rook with the pawn. So technically right now I'm in a losing position. The commentator says this is a 0 evaluation, so it's equal. However, the opponent does have 2 minor pieces for a rook. Pawn structure is pretty bad. They do have a passed pawn though, but the king is a little bit open. So my compensation is that I do want to attack over here. In the very least, I can probably do like some perpetual checks to try to make a draw. So they brought the bishop over there, attacking that bishop, and boom. Because this bishop is blocking the king's connection, I can try to do an attack over there with my rooks and hopefully do a checkmate. That's why I brought my rook from f7 to a7. They brought the knight to do a check. And here's I made a mistake. I brought my king to h1. Technically it's a blunder. I made a blunder because I was thinking that if I bring the king to g2, maybe they can just try to do some perpetual checks, bring the knight closer, some stuff like that. So yeah, I spent like 20 seconds on this move. And now the opponent's trying to like make an escape. So if we do a check, the king can actually escape this way. But that's not what I did. I brought my king this time. They did a check, so I can bring my king again. And now I calculated that there's nothing that the knight can do successfully. I did a check, but I just brought the rook back, so I do have a very slight advantage. The commentator is giving +1. I still want to do the same exact idea. So my opponent brought the rook to do a check. I moved my king, and now they made a blunder. They are attacking my king, however, the knight actually is overloaded. The knight is protecting this rook, and I can try to capture that in the future. However, my rook will be hanging too. So, luckily for me, my opponent moved the king to prevent the checkmate, but this also means they're no longer attacking my rook on a7. So there's a little tactic that white can do right now. If you want, you can pause the video. So the tactic is removing the defender. I actually gave a lot of hints. We can remove this knight and then capture that rook. So what I did is I captured the knight with my rook. They brought their rook over there. I captured that pawn with my king. Rook captured my rook, and I captured it. So our rook is in a very, very good position right now. They only have 13 seconds left, but this is a clear winning position for white. The computer is giving 8.69 plus. So we can just try to capture that pawn. We can try to gobble up those. So here's how the game ended. I'm trying to bring my king closer. Now they're still putting up a fight, trying to like defend those pawns. All of them are on dark squares. The bishop is on a dark square. However, after that check, it doesn't really matter. I can just sack my rook. After they capture, I have too many passed pawns. I can capture that. Push 2 pawns. We're going to be winning anyway. My opponent did lose on time, but this is actually how I won the game. Yeah, so there were 19 best moves, 9 excellent moves, 8 great moves, 2 brilliant moves in this game, but the accuracy is like 80%. So in the next game, we were actually playing as white again, and I was playing, again, this was like before New Year's, around like Christmas time, and my opponent was playing the Sicilian defense, and they're specifically doing the timeout variation, so the opening part is going to be pretty basic. I am doing the Maroczy bind though, so I do bring my pawn to c4, and then they push the pawn. I bring my bishop to e2, the knight goes to f6. So there are some ideas of like trying to push the pawn forward in the future, but not right now. They bring the bishop to there. I capture their knight, and now I push the pawn to b3. The computer says this is a blunder. They can try to pin this knight. And also, I'm actually missing the chance to push the pawn to e5 right now. If the pawn goes to e5, there's actually nowhere, not really any good squares for this knight to go. All the squares the knight can go, I can capture. We can only go back to like h7 or g8. So that's why I'm moving the pawn to b3 is not the best. However, I do make the pawn to e5 in the future. So my opponent has a mouse slip right now. I bring my bishop to b2. They bring the bishop to b7. I push the pawn to e5. So now the knight has to go back. And we can try to make a pawn flank attack in the future over here. That's going to be a very good idea. But because the bishops are facing my king, we do need to be careful about that. So I brought the knight attacking this bishop. The bishop goes back. I push the pawn to f4. The opponent brings the pawn to g6. And now I do g4. It is saying it's an inaccuracy, but human-wise, these are some pretty strong attacks. And I push the pawn to c5. Might seem like it's not really doing anything because all of the attack happening is over the king side. However, the opponent's bishop on b7 wants to get activated. In order to stop them from moving their pawn, I push my pawn. They brought the queen attacking that pawn. I brought my queen. And I'm also bringing my queen on this very, very nice diagonal, which can be quite deadly if we can make a pawn break very soon. So they brought their rook to d8. I pushed the pawn. They captured. I captured. Now the king goes back. And even though I do want to open this diagonal, in order to open it, I have to be patient, right? You don't want to be the one who captures it because then your pawn on e5 cannot move. So I'm trying to make some attacks over there to make that queen go back. They actually went to a4, so the queen can't really do much over there. And now I bring my knight to d6, putting pressure over that pawn, making a fork threat as well. The opponent captured it with the bishop, and now boom, it's time to open this diagonal, right? I captured it with my e-pawn, checking the king. I want to make an attack, so they push the pawn to f6. I push my pawn forward. They go over here, and the goal is to eliminate this pawn. So if you want, you can pause the video. I am giving a lot of hints, but there's actually a brilliant move right now for white to do. Alright, so the brilliant move is going to be rook captures on f6. If they capture us back with the knight, we can bring the queen, checking the king. Wherever the king goes, we can actually do a checkmate with queen g7. So that is my goal, but my opponent didn't capture the rook. Instead, they pushed the pawn to block, but we can simply capture it. They brought the rook to do a check. If my king moves, maybe they'll try to like block it with the rook. They can try to bring their other rook to make a support line over there. However, there's a simple way for white to win. We can do a checkmate in 3 moves. And after my move, my opponent actually resigned. Okay, so the idea is that since my king is in check, I want to block it. I blocked it with a check it myself. So the only move they can do is like to block it with the knight. They can also push the rook, but we can just capture those. So like if they did block with the rook, this would be a checkmate. Okay. So as you can see, most of these brilliant moves were based on sacrifices. That's how the chess.com engine evaluated them. But yeah, some of these moves weren't actually that difficult to find. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.